Hello, everybody. You're back with me, Ian Kane. A huge welcome to this week's second installment of DappRadar Meets. The date is Wednesday, July the 13th. I'm not going to say it again, but I still can't believe we're in the middle of July. It's crazy. Huge hello to all of the listeners, and thanks for tuning in for another episode. It's really cool to be here, and I hope you're all having a good week so far. A little bit of Bitcoin drop I saw just a moment ago there. Don't worry, people. It's all right. It's all right. As always, we record the sessions for people to catch up later. If you missed any of the previous shows, you can grab them all on YouTube. Just head over. You'll find hundreds of educational and analytical videos over there to help you along your Dapp journey. Loads of stuff there as well. So I just want to point at this for a second. And we're not just talking about highlighting what DappRadar does. We make a lot of guides, a lot of step-by-step information, like how to set up your MetaMask wallet on layer 2, how to trade on Polygon, like things that people want to know. We generally answer those questions. So go and take a look on our YouTube, loads of stuff there, and all these AMAs as well. So with that in mind, today I'm excited to welcome one of the team from the play to earn game Crabada to the stage. So I just want to do a quick sound check. Are you there?
Hello, hi Ian, I'm here, and perfect introduction.
Awesome. All right, cool, man. Good to have you. I'm just going to jump into some news and bits and bobs from the week, and then we'll jump right into the AMA all about Crabada. All right, so bear with me. We'll be back on in a second. So what has been happening out there this week? Lots happening already. Probably the biggest thing to happen this week was the phishing hack over at Uniswap. Now, I just want to be really clear about this. This is not Uniswap's fault. There is no issue with the protocol. Uniswap is a leading DeFi protocol, and this problem is not really to do with them. What's happened over there is that a bunch of people have clicked on they've approved a transaction in their wallet basically to pick up 400 Uni tokens, which was malicious. There was no Uni airdrop happening. As a result, they've permitted a hacker to dive into their wallet and remove all their liquidity provider tokens. The total stands at around $8 million right now. Like I said, this is not Uniswap's fault. This is kind of hungry people who get emails and messages and dive into things without really checking properly. So a lot of attention on security right now. And we've written a whole bunch of guides around this as well. How to stay safe, 4 things you can do, like how to keep your wallet protected. So that's a big story this week. What else is happening? We've got Wax, the Wax blockchain. It's coming up to their 3rd birthday actually at the end of this week, and we've just put together a small report on them, and we've seen that they're really like taking shape and dominating the play to earn gaming space. They got 42% market share right now. We've done another couple of articles as well, like how to avoid getting wrecked in DeFi and crypto, which I think is quite important. And again, goes back to what we were speaking about a second ago. And also, we've written an article called 5 Things You Can Do with DappRadar. A lot of people always come and ask us, like, what can I do here? So we've answered some of those basic level questions. So go and check it out. You can find all that stuff on our blog, plus a whole ton of guides, education, and all the trending articles to make sure that you stay one step ahead. Like we just released our trending dapps, which is a 7-day snapshot of like the coolest things happening in the world of Web3 apps. So loads to check out there. But don't go check it out now, because now we're going to shift over to the main event. And as regular listeners know, I sit down every week with the brightest minds, dapps, blockchains, NFT collections, play-to-earn games, and we want to dig in and talk to them and see what they're all about. Really importantly here is to put a human face on the project and give you, the audience, a chance to ask questions. So you have that opportunity. Simply stick up your hand and I will add you onto the stage and you can ask your question. If you're a bit shy, don't worry. Send the question in as a message. I will grab that and endeavor to get it answered over by the guys. And if you're even more shy and don't want to do that, just fire the question into our Discord and we'll see if we can get an answer for you. All right. Okay, so I think I've warmed everybody up. Let's jump straight off and we'll start with the elevator pitch as we always do. So I want you to pretend that you're stuck in a lift with me for around a minute. I've got a t-shirt on that says I'm a blockchain investor and I'm ready to get involved, but I need you to impress me. Tell me about Crabada in this elevator. So you got about a minute. Let's see what you got. No pressure.
All right, well then I better make this minute worth it, right, Ian? So I think
Right.
we live in very stressful and busy times, right? And so I think everybody in the world needs some downtime, some time to unwind. And so I believe that everybody is looking for a good gaming experience, but not only one that is fun to play, but one that is obviously hyper casual and very easily accessible to fit into our modern hectic lives. And so Crabada is just that. We are a play and earn blockchain game that is based on iOS, Android, mobile, and PC. And it's a hyper casual idle game, right, where you can have fun, but it need not be overly complex and take up your entire day. There's enough strategizing, there's enough complex gameplay loops that one can experience without having to spend too many hours in the game every day. And so this gives our players the ability to enjoy this game across all major platforms, wherever they may be in the day, and still have a very wonderfully fun time where they can still also, obviously play the game, but also get exposure to the world of Web3 gaming as well. So I think that would be my minute-long pitch for you guys.
Wow, nailed it. I am going to put it out there and say that perhaps that is the best 1 minute elevator pitch I've heard this year. So kudos, man. That was really good. Cool. It's always good to start at the beginning. And I just want to pick up on something you said there as well. I said play to earn. You said play and earn. And I will apologize for my statement there because I think it's quite an important difference, right? You can play and you can earn, but you don't always have to play to earn. So yeah, important things there, little nuances that can become important. Let's go back a step. All right. Let's go back to the beginning of how did you get into this crazy world of blockchain? And I always call it a crazy world because quite truthfully, it really is. I mean, what's your background, man? Is it in gaming? Is it in finance? Like Crabada kind of combines these things. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, happy to, Ian. So I think backstories are always really interesting. I think especially in a game, right? I think the lore and the backstory of the characters that you play, these are some of the very, interesting things that draws people into games, right? Not just the actual gameplay loop itself. And so if only my background was as interesting as the background of the crabs in our games, right? Unfortunately, it's not. My backstory is much more ho-hum and much more run-of-the-mill, right? So for me, I'm not the game developer, and so I don't actually come from a gaming background. I actually come from a financial background. I used to work in a bank, and so after that, I had an opportunity arise where some friends of mine, introduced me to the blockchain, to Web3, and so some of these friends were involved in exactly that confluence of gaming and blockchain, right? And so that's exactly how I got exposed to blockchain gaming, and obviously eventually got the got red pilled to come and dive into this world, I think both literally and figuratively. And that's how I've ended up, working here in the undersea kingdom that is Crabada.
I like the way you describe that, like working in the undersea kingdom. But I mean, like the way you describe it there, like having somebody on board the team that was involved in finance is absolutely critical. No matter how, it may not be as glamorous as making games or creating art, but it's absolutely critical to this project. So yeah, I just want to make a point of that. Like it's required, man. So tell us a bit more about the team at Crabada, like the people that you work with day to day. What are they all about? What's the drive there? What's the big picture behind the project for the guys in the team?
Definitely. So I think the team has really grown since our inception, and the background of the team is very varied and very, I think, well staffed. We have people with many years of experience across game development, art and illustration, user design, user interface, even blockchain, right? Because as I think we'll discuss a bit later in the session, we have our own subnet now, and so that entails the need for blockchain expertise as well, and that is something that we have, at a very high level in our team as well. So definitely, there's a wide array of talent, right, across all the necessary verticals that we have in this team. But I think the most important thing is just how united the team is in our combined vision, right? Every single team member in the team believes that blockchain gaming truly has a long-term impact to play, right, in the onboarding of the next wave of Web3 users, especially with, I think, DeFi, we've seen, right, how that has brought in people, but we think that gaming can be that next step, right, to really open up the doors to mass adoption. We want to build a great game, right, to appeal to everyone, whether they be casual gamers, right, who just want to explore the kingdom of Crabada, or those more highly strategic players, right, who enjoy spending hours finding effective formations, effective teams, and climbing the leaderboard, right. And so, in order to facilitate all that, right, our team has also launched the Swimmer Network Subnet, and this is going to be our very own dedicated blockchain gaming hub in line with, that idea of onboarding the next generation of Web3 users. And as I mentioned earlier, in terms of the capabilities of the team, right? That's exactly why we need blockchain talent as well, because we believe this is just baby steps right now, but we are working hard to build out a solid gaming ecosystem, right? By leveraging strong partnerships and our, strong tech talent, and hopefully this will really kickstart the idea that gaming is, going to be the next big step for blockchain and for Web3.
Yeah, I mean, the data from our side definitely supports the theory. Absolutely. Like what we saw all the way up until the end of last year and continuing is that gaming was, I think one thing that's quite important is that DeFi became really big, right? Like let's say 2020, tail end, beginning of 2021. What DeFi did was bring money and value, and TVL was a metric. So we had lots of money and lots of value floating around, but not so many users as such, right? Then I think games popped up, and they're answering that question. And now we're getting to a place where DeFi and gaming is being put together to drive this mass adoption, because I don't see DeFi as the thing to bring mass adoption, but gaming I can see as being more friendly, right? Like more accessible and visualizing investment for people. Like, do you think that's important in the world now, that young people come to understand finance, what it means, how it works, and they can do that through a visual, like a game, rather than some boring textbook in their economics class? Do you think it's important?
For sure. I think, definitely who wouldn't love to learn things in a more interactive and a more gamified experience, right? I think that's one reason why classrooms have moved virtually. There are now educational apps, right, that young children are using as well. And I think education is constantly being disrupted by technology, which obviously, blockchain and Web3 is falls under. But having said that as well, I do think that, it might not necessarily also simply be about, I think, teaching people about finance, right? Because, I think one of the things that we really believe as well is that the next generation of users, right, want to get a taste of Web3, but they don't necessarily need to become, subject matter experts in the sense, right? So it's also on the dapps to design a user onboarding journey that's as seamless as possible, that can provide players the opportunity to get exposed to the good things about blockchain, right? The safety, the security, but at the same time, kind of extract away as much as possible in terms of, the clunkiness in terms of onboarding and like switching, things like that. So I think that is something that is really important, right? I think a good example I give sometimes, or an analogy, is that, put it this way: if you liken DeFi to banks, right? Who enjoys going to the bank, right? I mean, it's not really a pleasurable experience, right? You'd rather stay home and play a game, right? And so I think that's exactly why I agree with you that I think gaming really will be the next, will likely be the next big entry point for Web2 people to come over to Web3.
Yeah, I think so as well. I couldn't agree with everything you're saying more, and it's about building applications with smooth on-ramps, easy user journeys, and letting people know that blockchain isn't all clunky and difficult, and again, like you correctly say, like hiding some of that more complex stuff in the background. Like, I always use this analogy that like people don't generally know how cash machines work. As long as the cash comes out, they're going to be happy, right? They're not going to start debating about the intricacies of cash machine technology. It really doesn't matter as long as the service works. And I think that's where we're kind of at with this in the decentralized app world right now, where the challenge is got to smooth onboarding, and it's become like the major challenge, hasn't it? And I think and just to talk about Crabada for a second, because we've kind of gone a little bit deep already onto Crabada, like I wanted to ask, like, give us the kind of like, what is Crabada? What do you do? How do you play? What's the game? Like, give us the little 411 on that, because we're getting deep into the kind of into the mechanics of it already. Let's go back and just tell everyone what Crabada is all about. It's about crabs, but let's make it a bit more complicated, all right?
For sure, Ian. So yeah, so I think as I hinted at in my elevator pitch, Crabada, we are a play in a mobile game. Well, technically mobile, but play in an idle game that focuses around playing with a set of Hermit-Crabs that serve as kind of like your characters, your heroes. These characters are all NFTs that you can purchase and you can own, you can breed, and then when you have them, you can take them into our games our various game modes, and then you can play with them, right? This could be against computer enemies in the form of PvE modes, or it could be against other players as well, right? In form of PvP, right? Where you obviously fight your way for glory and fight your way for, leaderboard positions, things like that. And so the key thing to us, like I mentioned again earlier, is that it's available on PC, Mac, Android, and iOS, right? So it's meant to be easily accessible. And in terms of the game loop design, it's meant to be as idle as possible, right? So casual gaming, things like that. And so what that means is that, you press, there's obviously strategizing that you need to do, but you don't have, let's say, to manually control every single action that your crabs do. It's more of like an auto battler in a sense. So that's why we call it a hyper casual idle game. So that is what Crabada is.
You can jump in, make a few actions, jump out, come back later.
Exactly.
Get in, check out, that kind of vibe. Like, you're investing your entire life into it, and then having to spend 24 hours a day grinding on it, like, if you don't want to. Yeah, okay. All right, cool. I just wanted to get that. I just wanted to nail that. Because, sometimes I feel like we jump in a bit deep straight away. So I just want to pull that back a second. But, on that topic, you guys released, like, this battle game prototype in late November, right? Like, last year. So can you tell us, like, and what these things do, which is great, is you can learn from these tests and see how your players responded, right? So what did you see from that battle game prototype last year? Like, how did it go?
So this is a really interesting question, right? Because that battle game prototype was actually, that was meant to just be our, teaser for our community. Because for us, the intention was obviously to get the. I might have to take a step back, right? So when it comes to Crabada's universe, sorry, I know sometimes I get a bit ahead of myself. When it comes to Crabada's universe, there we have firstly our own subnet, which we will touch on a bit later, I'm sure. And on that subnet, we house two games, two modes basically. One is the idle game, which is a fully on-chain browser game that you can play through your, for example, your MetaMask wallet. And then the other one is what we call the battle game, right? And that battle game is the one that I described just now, which is the auto battler, the one with the PvP arena mode. You can fight computer enemies, right? The one that's on all major platforms. So that is our, I would say our core product, right? It's something that we've been building towards a long time. And the idle game is actually the battle game prototype that I think we are referring to in your question, right? So when we launched, I think last year, we wanted to release the idle game as a way for our community to get exposed to our NFTs, obviously, and just get a taste of the high-level gameplay loops and mechanics that would eventually be present in our battle game. So things like mining, looting, breeding, so things like that. Those form the foundation for the idle game. And beyond our wildest expectations, the idle game, went on to become super successful and super popular. And like I said, we were supposed to use it as just like a teaser, right? It was just like a teaser, but because it's really stripped down, right? It's a simple beta test, right? We wanted to use it to seek feedback, and but it got so much more attention and love that we could have ever imagined in our wildest dreams, right? And so just to give you some context, the idle game, I think, garnered nearly 8,000 daily active users at one point, and was consuming nearly 30 to 50% of all gas on Avalanche's C chain. And so, we kind of became we became a good thing and a bad thing as well, right? So, it was pretty funny, right? So so from that, obviously the love that we got, the massive user numbers, we also learned a lot, right? So we learned about how to iterate on our products, right? How to constantly make patches and updates, not only to maintain the uptime of the game, but also to ensure that the game is, enjoyable for all types of user segments, right? Because sometimes the game breaks down, you got to fix it. Sometimes, you've got to release new content to make people constantly excited, right? So it was, it was a learning journey to constantly basically learn how to not just launch a game, right, but keep it up and keep it healthy. So the other interesting thing I would think that came out of this idle game or battle game prototype would be the fact that we have to learn how to manage a fully on-chain game. which I believe was something that had not really been attempted on such a scale before. And so we also had to learn how to navigate some of the challenges that came with it, because they are many and they are very unique as well. So eventually, I think all these learning points are filtered back to our battle game design. And so while we are still very early on in the development of the battle game and our other dreams for the Crabada universe, I think that the learnings from the idle game have definitely helped us to get to where we are today.
It's really cool that like you literally, well, it's like you said, it's kind of cool and it's kind of a problem, right? Like you put it out there as a test and then people really resonated with it, which I think is awesome. And what do you think that shows about, for me, I'm sitting here thinking that shows the community were eager to receive some utility for their NFTs and to actually be able to play. I think a lot of dapps arrived last year that promised a lot and perhaps didn't deliver. And you guys delivered. So I think it was just a case of like they were just super excited that you guys were following through, or there was more than that. Like,
definitely, I think for sure. I mean, I'm not going to comment on how other dapps do their timelines, obviously, but I think for us, that's exactly one of the reasons why we had this prototype, right? Because we didn't want to keep our community waiting months on end, right? Before our core product in the form of the battle game came out, and hence that's why the idle game was born. And I think both a blessing and a curse, but exactly to what you said, right? I think to an extent, our community did appreciate the opportunity to get their hands on a product and have the chance to experiment and tinker around with their NFTs, right?
I think so, yeah. I mean, that means a lot when you see that. But yeah, I was just interested to just to see your perspective on that, really. But yeah, cool. I mean, so okay, so we talked about Crabada, the game, and what it means, and we mentioned these crabs. There's got to be more to this. Like, people really love to have a nice narrative when it comes to gaming. I do. I think it really adds a lot of value. And we call it lore in this kind of scenario. So what's the backstory to these crabs, man? Like, where do they come from? How come they're fighting? Like, what's their beef?
Well, Ian, I'd love to share, but if I share too much, then people won't need to play the game anymore, right? So I'm sure you wouldn't look you'd hate it if your mate spoiled the next Marvel movie for you before you enter the cinema. So, but no, jokes aside, I think for us, these crabs are set in a obviously an alternate universe where everybody lives under the sea, right? And and there's a whole backstory in terms of the history of this undersea kingdom and how these different factions of crabs came to be fighting. And obviously, we are at a point where the lore is slowly growing around the game. And we've had some amazing lore stories, short stories coming out with accompanying artworks that are super beautiful, might I add. And so these are the ways that we are constantly over time shedding more light on the backstory of Crabada. And so we envision it as a process where the players will get to experience this story as the game grows, right? So it's not exactly player driven, right?
But I know what you mean.
Yeah, but it's more of a process where as you guys play the game more and as we grow, right, the lore is continually fleshed out, right? So
yeah.
So that's what I can share, right? Definitely, I think we'd love to direct people to our Medium and to check out some of our short stories for lore. I think that would be a good place to start, right?
Yeah, that's pretty cool, right? Like you can jump into a short story and get a feel for what it is you're about to do. And then, yeah, I like that. Like, I had a chat with, we were talking with another project yesterday, and they were telling us about how people really wanted to have physical items. And also that these guys were like putting together comic books to portray the story of the game. And it was all just very cool stuff. Like physical world stuff still has a value that they noticed anyway as well. All right. So, I mean, you've got quite a lot of strategic partnerships. You've done quite a lot of announcements this year as well with several Avalanche, because the project Crabada runs on the Avalanche network. And you've announced quite a lot of partnerships with other projects on Avalanche. Can you tell us more about the kind of intentions behind those partnerships, what they mean to Crabada, what they're for, really? Hey, sorry, I'm not sure if you got a question there.
Oh,
can you hear?
sorry. I realized, typical issues. I was muted. So
Oh no,
what a done.
technically. on silent. Oh, it happens all the time. It's fine. Okay, so
No.
let's we're all
Let me restart. Sorry, I realized I was talking to myself. What a bummer. Sorry. But yes. But I know the question was on strategic partnerships, right? And
that's
so
it.
for us, yes, the greater goal for Crabada and Sumo Network by extension has always been to work together with a multitude of projects and Web3 games, right? The goal being to create a collaborative environment for the growth of the Avalanche ecosystem. And I think larger than that as well, the greater goals of just GameFi in general. These strategic partnerships are just, obviously one way to help us support new and upcoming projects by casting the spotlight on them, and at the same time give back to the blossoming Crabada community, right? So kind of just, help ourselves by helping everybody as well, right? So it's kind of like, just wanting to help everybody grow together. And so why do we do all this, right? Because we want to propel the growth of the Web3 gaming space in whatever way that we can. And we have really been extremely blessed to be, I guess, in a very strong position. And so we want to help take the forefront to spearhead, just the growth of the larger GameFi movement by leveraging the progress that we've already achieved with Crabada, right? And so what's the tangible outcome of that? Obviously, is our Avalanche subnet, the Sumo Network, which we have designed to become a hub for gaming and gamers alike. Sumo Network aims to become a home to a large variety of Web3 games, each with its own thriving community of gamers. And this will obviously help to increase accessibility, right, to Web3 enabled gaming, since, if everything is based on the same network and this network is custom designed, right, for gaming specifically, we can make the onboarding process as frictionless as possible, right? And so the end result, I think, like we touched on way earlier in the conversation, is to just basically provide Web2 users, right, with a easy access to a world of fun and engaging game experiences, right? They don't need to know how it works. They just need to have fun, right? And that's the most important thing.
Yeah, that would be great, right? You don't need to understand what it does, just understand that it's going to be fun and you're going to like it. Like, I like that objective there. And I mean, what we see, I think I agree with what you're saying in the regard to what you're saying, like helping other dapps in the network grow and other things like that. And in terms of sort of Crabada as the big company, do you think you guys are going to just kind of become a game publisher? Crabada is like the foundation for a bigger picture here, or is that not really the plan?
Well, I think publisher is it depends on what you define as a publisher, right? I think as a network, Sumo Network is definitely going to help games, get live, get access to the world, but are we, for example, somebody that takes commission fees that's going to be a traditional publisher? I don't know, right? I think
Yeah.
maybe enabler would be a better word. I think the key for us, I think Sumo Network is more that we want to enable and help support games, right? To get live, get on our mainnet, get access to a user base of Web3 gaming enthusiasts. And I think the rest can obviously work itself out after that. Obviously, it's not that simple, right? I'm painting a very broad strokes. Anything that obviously is a B2B transaction obviously has to go through, necessary thorough due diligence and whatnot. But I think the key is just that, if we wanted to be a traditional publisher, then what difference would we be from, typical Web2 game studios, right? So I think, it's we want to just help enable, and that is, the guiding principle, and then the rest would obviously come after that.
Yeah, definitely. No, I see it like that as well. Like, you guys are the ones who are pioneering in this space, right? Like, you've got a handful of games that are really leading things, and you're one of them. And I think that people are going to look at you guys as the, what's the word? Like the benchmark, in years to come, they're going to use you as a foundation to launch from. They're going to think, well, these guys did this, this, and this, and it worked correctly. And I think it's very brave what you guys are doing. You're stepping out there at a time when this is not hottest thing in the world, but you're laying foundations for the future of it. And I think it's really cool. All right, so let's get into the tech. I want to go a bit deeper on the tech. So in May, that was this year, you guys launched on your own subnet. So we've been talking about these subnets a little bit, but let's dive in here as well. Like, can you tell us a bit about how these subnets kind of work and what's the benefits they offer. I think it's the Swimmer network for Crabada, right?
Yes, yes, right. It is right. So it's the swimmer network, and we love to invite everybody to come and take a swim with us, right, and enjoy the pool. So that joke aside, so I think the genesis, right, and obviously we'll talk about the benefits and whatnot a bit after that, is that I think, as I shared a bit earlier, since our inception, Crabada's idle game, which was launched on the Avalanche C chain, did prove to be hugely popular. And, as a result, we did take up quite a bit of the gas consumption. So obviously by nature, that means that, you've got to pay gas fees and whatnot. And so for us, one of the reasons why we picked Avalanche C chain as our home when we launched the idle game was exactly the fact that they had teased the potential of subnets, right, as a way to help scale. And so even back then, I still remember that, before the official documentation for subnets was, fully published by Avalanche, so we'd already been, just exploring a bit on our own, on the side, trying to see what would work, what wouldn't work. And so eventually it came to a point where it made a lot of sense to move to our own subnet, right, by leveraging on obviously the technology, the security, the scalability afforded by this subnet platform by Avalanche, and then just use that opportunity for customization. Sorry, the words elude me. To help basically turn it into our own personal home. And so this move to our own subnet was highly anticipated by everybody, both in our community, but I also think in the general Avalanche community, right? Really happy to see a big load off their shoulders. So what Swimmer Network is, right? It's a dedicated blockchain, and it's a dedicated gaming hub as well, right? With Crabada obviously being the anchor project. Thanks to our move to Swimmer, our players can now enjoy considerably lower gas fees, given that the gas fees of Swimmer are actually denominated in our in-game token, TUS, or Treasure Under Sea. So that's it was I guess a risk and an experiment that we were making as well ourselves when we launched it. We wanted to tie in the subnet, or basically the blockchain, with the game. And so I think that's why we did it the way we did. And so while we're obviously still in the early days, the technology really seems to be really good in that it's providing a core component to the scalability issue, right? Where potentially, right, and we're still really far off of that, but as Swimmer Network grows and grows and grows, and if we get another Crabada, right, subnet offers the opportunity for them to do their own subnet, right? And so it's a gift that keeps giving, right? If I can put it that way. And so I think the last thing that I love to share about, I think, what the subnets and the benefits they offer would be that subnets are highly customizable, right? Because you have the code, you have the genesis, you can do what you want with it. And so as again, right, way early in this conversation, I mentioned that we have a lot of great blockchain talent, and so that talent is working hard to develop further game-focused functionality to Swimmer Network, right? I mentioned earlier about the TUS, the gas fee, but we're also looking to do other things that will help to ease the onboarding journey for our users, right? One of which is, I think we've teased before, is that we're looking to develop a model where projects can potentially pay for gas on behalf of their users, right? And this could be a very interesting way to reduce onboarding friction for new participants, and especially for idle games and free to start games. I think that's super important. And so this will basically enable Swimmer to become a very good infrastructure starting place, right? Where game projects and game developers will be able to access a great tech stack, and also access an existing passionate gaming community, and thereby this allows them to just purely focus on building a great game, right, without having to worry about some of the other stuff that comes with building a Web3 game, right, in terms of the blockchain stuff, integrations, and whatnot. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I really agree with you there. And the subnet thing has been quite exciting since it launched. I remember writing about this development for Crabada back a while ago now, quite, it really piqued my interest. I was like, this is an interesting solution here, whereby I could see exactly what you're describing, where other games come along and they're not restricted by the network. They've almost got their own bespoke version of it, which is great. In terms of working with Avalanche and launching on Avalanche, is there any particular reason why you chose to go with Avalanche, or are you guys like affiliated with Avalanche? How's that? Are you like an official DApp of Avalanche? How does that work?
So we're not. I don't know what an official DApp is, but as I alluded to before, I think when we were choosing which network to launch on, obviously there are many great blockchains out there, many wonderful teams that are building amazing networks. But for us, I think two main things. One, like I shared about, was the subnet piece, right? Even back then, it was a very promising piece of technology, and I think it really intrigued us, given that we didn't expect what we got, but we did expect maybe hopefully we'd get some decent traffic in the future, and then for example, mainnet congestion could be a problem that we need to solve down the line. And so, if the network has this interesting possibility where it could solve that problem, I think that was a good selling point. The second one will obviously just be the community as well. I think the Avalanche community is one that is super warm, super receptive, and it's just pretty special. And even though we're now quote unquote on our own subnet, I think we are still very much a part of the larger Avalanche ecosystem, and I think the people there are just super warm and super receptive, and that was another reason that convinced us to launch in Avalanche.
All right, cool. Okay, so the game is focused in, and it has this play and earn element in it. So we wouldn't be doing our job properly if I didn't ask you about this a little bit. In terms of kind of what's the barrier? How do people get involved with Crabada? What do you need? Do you need an NFT? Like, how does it work? What do I need to do to try and to get involved at the beginning? Also, a second part to that question, is there a rental system whereby I can rent some crabs so I can test it out? How does all that work for new players?
Yeah, for sure. So for us, it's like I mentioned earlier, you have to get our Crabada NFTs to play the game. So the first step would obviously be to get these NFTs, and the place you can get them is via our proprietary own marketplace that is live on Sumo Network. And so you go there, obviously you go through some conversions of existing tokens that you might have, and then you'll be able to purchase these Crabada NFTs. And then with those Crabada NFTs, you can deposit them into our, you can use them to access our games and basically enjoy the Crabada gameplay experience, right? In terms of new users, if you'd like to, enjoy the game, but you don't have the ability to purchase the Crabada NFTs, of which I forgot to add it, you need 3 to start. You need a minimum of 3 of these NFTs to form one team, because they come in teams of 3. And so if you only have 1, for example, or you can't afford to get 3, we do have a discipleship model or discipleship feature where you can, similar to, I think, scholarships, you can get access to the game via somebody else's NFTs. And so that is another option that we do have. And on top of all that, obviously we're still, exploring and looking for ways to always improve and increase accessibility. And we'll keep our community apprised and updated as we go.
Nice. So the internal marketplace is the place to go. All right, cool. All right. So what would you say then what are the most least understood things about Crabada? Like, what are the questions that people ask the most? And, what are the sort of features that people perhaps completely misunderstand about Crabada?
Well, I think there's so much to go through, right? But probably for me, the least understood feature of Crabada would probably be their inherent passive skills and how formations play a big part in the strength of the team in Crabada, right? Because as mentioned, I think I overused this phrase, right? I'm sorry, but I touched on it before. This is a idle game, right? So you don't have that much micro control. So a lot of it is based on how you set up your team, the strength of your crabs, etc. And of course, other things as well, like how well do you level up your crabs in the, for example, PvE-based adventure mode, right? I think I didn't cover that in the previous question about how players start, right? There's many ways you can play the game, basically. But point is that in our battle game, you can battle against other players and their team of 3 Crabadas. There are the base statistics of your crabs, and I think there are the special ultimate skills that are stored within each crab's pincer. And these things typically catch the highlights, right? When people are purchasing crabs or when people are thinking of their team formations and whatnot. But there are many other, less flashy and more subtle mechanics, like passive skills or even team formations, right? That smart players would be able to properly leverage into induce beneficial buffs for their teams or negative debuffs to their opponent teams, right? And so when you combine these formations and the passive skills I was talking about, these mechanics can give players much more latitude in setting up their strategies and team compositions, right, to maximize their chances for victory and climb up the ladder for glory in the Undersea Kingdom.
Nice.
Having said all that, I try to share as much as I can, but sometimes the best way to learn something is just to do it, right? So I think encouraging everybody here to jump into the battle game and experiment for themselves.
Yeah, definitely. So how did the community play their role in this? Like some of the other games I speak to, they're like the community, they really help each other. They try to tell each other what a good team would look like, what 3 good strong crabs are like. And then in other projects, they're like, no, the team, everyone's keeping it a secret from each other because they want to be the best, So how is the Crabada community? Do they help each other?
Yeah, I think it's really helpful. It's really warm. I think people are very open to share. And, one interesting thing I always see is that because we have we have the adventure mode, which is a player versus enemy, or basically a bot, right? A computer enemy. There's a mode that you got to clear to upgrade your crabs and whatnot. And obviously, as you clear different levels, the levels begin to get harder and harder. And so it's always it's very interesting and very heartening to see when players are discussing in the channels and discussing in chats. Hey guys, I'm stuck at this level. Any advice? Hey guys, what's the best setup for this? And and people are always open to share. People are open to experiment to see what works. And yeah, I think definitely the community is super welcoming and super warm in that regard.
It's very cool, isn't it? That they're kind of, for me, it kind of feels a little bit opposite to traditional games where, yeah, you would find cheat codes and stuff online, but I don't know, like the idea that other players are helping players win is kind of nice and fuzzy, isn't it? It gives you a nice feeling rather than a ultra competitive, everybody on their own kind of vibe. Any tips for making a good team? Like if I want to get 3 crabs, you got any tips for me? Like what should I look for? Or not?
So I have to be really honest here, Ian. I myself am not really that good at the game, so I have many other people I know who are much better than me, and so all I can say is that if you need help, ask the community, because there'll always be somebody who is a wise sage out there who will have the best advice for you to solve any problem that you might have, right? And so just like I said, the community is warm, the community is welcoming, so don't be afraid to hop in there and get your feet wet and get exposed to everybody, right? I think that's the way that everybody grows together, and I guess that includes myself, right? So
we'll be in there together, we'll probably end up asking each other what the best team is, and yeah. Okay, cool. I'm just looking for some little tips there, but it's good to know that you can jump in. And that the best channel for you guys to do those kind of things, I'm presuming, is Discord, right? You got a really lively Discord, is that right?
Yep. That's definitely the place to go. Always a happening place. Put it that way.
Nice. Okay, then we're getting towards the end of the session. So one of the things that people always want to know about is what's coming in the future. No matter what you've done in the past, man, people are always going to want more. That just seems to be the rule of life. Please, let's go through the roadmap a little bit for Crabada. We're halfway through the year. How's it been going? And then what's beyond that? What have players got to look forward to, and what should people be getting excited about coming in the future?
Yeah, I think no better time to take stock of the year than right about mid-year, right? So there are definitely very exciting things planned for Crabada and Sumo Network for the rest of this year. While we have many releases and features currently in development or being fleshed out right now, they mostly fall under a few key focus areas that we are targeting for the rest of this year. These areas include, but are not limited to, obviously, things like game features, our economy V2, player quality of life, and last but not least, the lore and the storyline aspect of our game. So I'll just go through them quickly, area by area. So for the game features, we really want to increase the number of things that our players can do within our game. Since obviously, like you mentioned, right, people always want more and more. New content and experiences are an important part of any game. So that includes us. So for example, for us, we've recently pushed out significant changes to our PvP experience by releasing first our friend v-friend feature, which is meant to be a very social way to challenge other people, and then more recently the arena mode, which is a bit more of a competitive way to challenge your friends and the general wider Crabada player base as well. Leaderboards, rewards, and whatnot. Yeah. And so obviously, in addition to these efforts so far, we expect that we will come up with more game modes, one of which should again, I caveat, should be ready for release within the next 1 or 2 quarters. So
careful,
so looking forward to that. Yeah, I wish. I just don't obviously don't want to make it tough for us and also disappoint our community as well, right? But just the key here is that we do have more game modes coming, and one should be coming up within the next 2 quarters. So now, next one is Economy V2, right? And so for Economy V2, or what we are calling Economy V2, we are aiming to build and release gameplay features, gameplay loops, and the infrastructures that will form the backbone and the dependencies for this Economy V2. What is this Economy V2, right? It's what we are calling Economy V2 is our vision for an improved economic design for Crabada, where players will be able to interact with the game's economy in more ways than what they have right now, right? And the key is to basically open more doors for specialization and decision making by players, right? So that includes things like items and whatnot, and basically just diversifying the ways that people engage with the economy. So it's not just purely token based, for example, right? And so to that end, we are currently building the necessary infrastructure, such as a platform for trading in-game assets like materials. Nice. So next is quality of life. That's also a super important focus area for us. Why? That's because it's an iterative process that while not always flashy, like for example the release of arena mode, is something that is crucial to a game's success. Our players are obviously the cornerstone of our design decisions, and therefore we are always looking for ways to smoothen the user journey, provide more analytics on our marketplace, or just do more things that will make our players' lives easier and better. We believe that every feature that we have right now, right, is just merely a V1. And as with any V1, you always have the potential to further iterate on it and improve it, right? And so if you can, why not do it? And last thing but not least, obviously, like you asked before, Ian, lore, right? That's really important as well. Why? Because we understand how immersiveness is just a super key component for any game. And we obviously, again, are no exception. From our beginning, we have tried to weave in the storyline of Crabada along with our growth, and we have really seen how the community has responded warmly to these efforts, right? Whether they be our short stories, whether they be some of the merchandise that's in teas, things like that. Now with the launch of obviously more game modes and features, we really want to continue these efforts to engage our player base through the lore aspect. And one way we are exploring is the release of official Crabada merchandise that is not just simply generic merchandise, but would really be an extension, like you said before, right, of like physical developments in the lore, right? So that's something that we think is super interesting, and we're currently exploring.
Nice. So we might be seeing, and we're talking about real world merch here, right? Like real world stuff to add to the nice.
Real world swag here.
Real world swagger. I think it was an interesting chat I had the other day, because I think they were quite surprised that people were still so sort of longing for real world swagger. We've come to this place in the world where the digital world seems to be taking over us, but the response from humans is like, no, please don't take everything away just yet. Like let us touch things still. That seems to be the trend. So all right, cool. So we've come like I think we've done a nice job of outlining what's going on with Crabada, what people should be looking forward to, and how it works, how you can get involved. So I just want to ask you a bit of a random question. I'm just going to throw it out there. So we're obviously in this place, right now where the crypto prices are going down and everyone's a bit sad and but for people like us, I believe it's okay. We're in a period of building. I'm actually super excited about this next phase in the markets as well. But how are you feeling about play to earn gaming? Where do you think it's going? What's your vision for the future of the kind of link between the metaverse and play to earn gaming? What do you think about all this stuff just from a personal perspective, man? Like, where do you think we're headed?
Well, that's a complicated question. But again, I'll try my best to answer. And obviously, caveat here is that I'm answering from a personal perspective. So take it as you may. But I think we're just really in early innings, right? Me personally, I think I draw a lot of parallels to obviously the internet revolution, obviously of the late 90s, early 2000s, right? There's obviously speculation, there's obviously hype, but at the end of the day, there really was a fundamental shift in how things were done. Back then, for example, you had Amazon was around, but was it the behemoth that it was today? Maybe not, right? So I think the key is basically for projects to just keep building, keep focusing on quality and building a great product, right? Sometimes that might necessarily doesn't always mean, for example, catering to the lowest common denominator, right? Sometimes you've got to make hard choices, right? That while painful at the moment, will be beneficial in the long run. And I think when you add all these kind of small decisions in the present together, that is basically how the survivors and the leaders of tomorrow will get through today, right? And so, while I can't prognosticate on what the future of Web2, of Web3 gaming will look like, and obviously I hope that Crabada will be a leading light in that space. But I think definitely the one thing I can say would be that the existing gaming market would likely not be the same, right? I do feel that on a personal level. Once people get to understand how important ownership and I think that whole point on non-fungibility can be, people won't really accept the previous ways that the gaming industry used to operate in, right? I mean, for context, I think people don't realize, but gaming is a truly multi-billion-dollar industry, right? And a lot of that value, a lot of it actually accrues to big companies, large corporate interests, things like that. And it really just doesn't make sense in that it's not so much that players need to own the financial value of what they do. I think most players, like you said, they're more than willing to pay for a good time, to pay for a good experience, right? I think the key is just knowing that you're not really just always going into a place where there's some big organization trying to exploit you and squeeze you at every single turn, right? And once people realize the what's possible on the other side, I do really think that even if, for example, the whole of Web2 doesn't move to Web3, I think a lot of the elements or the value propositions from Web3 will filter back into Web2, right? I know people like to meme about some of the failed experiments that some large game publishers have tried to do with NFTs in their games, right? It's like done a bit tastelessly, or a bit like what the hell is this, right? But I do think that give it a years, give it decades, and we likely will come to a place where I think the lines between Web2 and Web3 blur much more considerably.
Yeah, I know. Great answer. Like you said, it's a big question, but you nailed the answer absolutely. And I think to add to that as well, like we spoke about the onboarding and things like that, and the true ownership in gaming. I think, as you rightly said, not everyone will care that much about that, but once they get a taste that it's possible, I think they will start to then question the old way of doing things. But the other thing that kind of excites me is that interoperability as well. Is like, it's not so clear cut. It's like playing a game for a year, getting bored and then being able to sell the assets and for want of a better word, invest in another game, i.e. use the value you've released from one that you don't play anymore and take it over to another one. And even the crossover between games, whereby you might see, I don't know, like you don't generally see video games like doing crossovers, do you? Like you don't get characters from one video game in another one. And I think in the blockchain gaming world, this might be like really regular. We'll see a lot of overlapping going on between like some of these metaverse worlds. The other side, for example, where they've teased now that it won't just be for apes. So it's not just for the Bored Ape Yacht Club people, it's for all the other NFT collections as well. So yeah, I just think it's a really interesting time. And again, as you said, there's been some crude attempts at trying to. Why do you think, like, let's take one of the examples. I think it was the Ghost Recon example. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but basically they said they were going to implement NFTs and they just got a big load of backlash. You think it's just education around the topic that's missing? People don't really understand what they are.
Yeah. But just to make sure I'm on the same page, and I know people at Ubisoft, so I don't want to be too harsh, right? But
Yeah,
um,
sure.
yeah, it's the one I think where like you had to grind an inordinate amount of hours to get some NFT that was just merely symbolic or ceremonial, right, or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, I think again, right? So my again personal take here is just that um, I think players, again, to your example of they just want the cash to come out of the machine, right? Can you imagine if I told you to go to the ATM, but when you press withdraw the cash, they tell you, please do 100 jumping jacks, 200 sit-ups, and then like 1,000 squats before I give you the cash. People be like, what the heck? Right?
You
It's
just
like
create
exactly, right? It defeats the purpose of the technology. I must just walk into the bank and ask the teller for the money straight. The ATM is supposed to be easier, not harder, right? And so I think that's the key, right? In that the design of how you use things like NFTs, how you use things like tokens, it just has to make the journey easier and I guess more either fun or significant for the player, rather than simply just being yet another step to make things harder, right? Because scarcity in and of itself is not value, right? Just because you make it scarce doesn't make it valuable, right? It's so much more than that. And so I think that uh, I don't have the answer on how, if, for example, right, Ghost Recon could have done it better. But I would just say that obviously it's not as simple as just gating something behind some scarcity metric, right? That alone will not make things successful.
Yeah, I agree with you. Definitely, felt a bit rushed and a bit premature and a bit of a bandwagon thing. But I think the point being that we've got a way to go here, and that nobody should be thinking that next year blockchain games are going to look like Grand Theft Auto. We're not there yet, and we're on our way. And I think we're progressing quickly. And I think this year and last year has been an amazing year for blockchain games. So yeah, it's a very cool time to be involved in projects such as this, I can imagine. All right, man, we've come to the end of the session, so I just want to give you the chance just to is there anything else you want to get out there? Any, social media links, anything else you want to say that highlights what's going on with Crabada? Even just, where people can connect with you best, things like that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Thank you for the chance to plug. Obviously, I think Crabada and myself. So, I think most of our links are in your tweets and in your socials as well. So please do visit Crabada.com if you're interested. Take a look at our Twitter account at Play Crabada, and just hop in all our channels. Right, there's always a lively conversation, whether it be on Telegram, Discord, or on Twitter. And so I think please, if you're interested in taking a dip into the Undersea Kingdom, the door is always open. Or would I say, well, I guess the sea is always open.
The sea,
yeah.
There is no door on the sea.
Like. Yeah, exactly. So, but again, I think I also want to just end off by thanking you, Ian, for being a wonderful host, moderator, and obviously for the rest of the DappRadar team for putting all this together. And of course, last but not least, the audience who have taken their time out of their days to come and listen to us chat and drone on and on and on about blockchain gaming. So thank you to everybody involved.
Yeah, I would echo that. Thank you. It's great to see people in the crowd. And as I said at the beginning, we do put this content up onto YouTube because there's a lot of content here to unpack as well over, you can take your time with it. Sometimes we go deep. both of us have probably, we speak about things sometimes that are perhaps a bit far advanced, and yeah, just take your time, unpack it, come to understand what things are about. That's what these sessions are for, really, and to meet people behind the projects. I think that's really important as well. So thanks, man. Thank you for taking the time today. I really appreciate that. You did a great job telling everybody, and I hope people in the audience learned something today. I'm sure we'll speak again next year or in the near future when Crabada is on PlayStation 4, right?
Yeah. Well, I think by that time it might not be PlayStation 4, but PlayStation 6 or 7 by that time, right? So,
PlayStation 9 or
and that
something.
and and that's assuming that you can even get your hands on one set without having to go to the scalpers and lose an arm and a leg. So, if you guys can get your hands on one, please get me one set as well, right? I'll send you a thank you note.
A very valid point, man. A very valid point. All right. So on that note, I'm just going to tell you what's happening tomorrow. So over here on Discord, we've got our Dapp Market Mover session with Boris and Pedro. They're actually something, relevant as well to what we were just talking about. Blockchain games siphoning talent and capital from legacy media. Devs jumping off the Web 2 ship and hopping onto the good ship Web 3. So yeah, join in 3 p.m. UTC. As always, ask your questions. You can dive in, get involved. Everything, they'll be there for you on Discord. All right. So thanks again to my guest. Thanks to all the listeners. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I will see you all next week. Thanks again, man. Have a great week and take care.
Take care, everybody. See y'all.